Park Jin-yo was not a special person. He had a small apartment, a job nobody found interesting, and a habit of eating dinner alone while watching old documentaries. His neighbors barely knew his name. His co-workers forgot about him the moment they left the office. He was the kind of person who existed in the background of other people's lives, present but unnoticed, like a chair that was always there, but nobody thought about. But Park Jin-yo had a secret that would have broken anyone else. He had already lived through the end of the world. It did not end with explosions or wars or meteor strikes. It ended with cold. A cold so deep and so total that it swallowed everything: crops, cities, power lines, governments, and eventually people. In his first life, the temperature dropped 40 degrees in a single week. Nobody was ready. Nobody believed it was possible until it was already happening. Supermarkets emptied in hours. Roads jammed with cars going nowhere. Within 30 days, most of the northern hemisphere was a frozen graveyard. Jin-ho died on day 54. He was in the ruins of a shopping mall, weak and starving, fighting 3 strangers over a single can of corn. He lost. That was how his first life ended. Not heroically, not peacefully, just badly, in the cold, over a can of corn. Then he woke up. He was back in his bed. His alarm clock read 6:14 in the morning. Outside, birds were making noise. The sun was coming up. Everything was completely normal. He lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling. Then he sat up, pressed both palms flat on his thighs, and made a decision. He was not going to die over a can of corn again. A few days after waking up, something appeared in front of him. A faint glowing interface, like a transparent screen floating in the air, that only he could see. It called itself a survival architect system. It was not a combat ability. It was not a fighting power. It did one thing only. It helped him build. Blueprints appeared in it. Supply lists. A countdown timer with dates, phases, and warnings about what was coming. The system was clear that it would help him survive, but only if he actually did the work. It rewarded action. It punished delay. Every morning he did not move felt like wasted time pressing down on his chest. He had 3 years before the freeze returned. He started immediately. The first thing he did was buy land. Not near the city, far from it, 60 kilometers out, in a rural area, where nobody would pay attention to construction noise. He set up a shell company, using advice from a legal consultant, who thought he was starting an agricultural research facility. On paper, that is exactly what it looked like. Underneath the paper, it was something else entirely. He hired construction crews in rotation, making sure no single team stayed long enough to understand what the full structure was going to be. The blueprint the system gave him showed a bunker going 12 meters underground, reinforced walls, thick insulation, airtight ceiling, geothermal heating. The kind of structure that could maintain a livable temperature, even if the outside world dropped to -70 degrees. The construction workers thought they were building storage chambers and research labs. They were not wrong, technically. They just did not have the full picture. Jin-ho drained his savings in the first year. He liquidated his retirement fund. He took out business loans with low interest rates that he planned carefully. He lost weight. He slept 4 hours a night. He stopped watching documentaries. He stopped doing anything that was not directly related to what he was building. His old life, the quiet, forgettable existence, disappeared. He did not miss it. The second year was about filling the bunker with supplies. This is where his old job became his greatest advantage. He had spent years working in logistics. He understood how supply chains moved, how bulk purchasing worked, how to acquire large quantities of goods without raising flags. He became one of the biggest private buyers of freeze-dried food in the country. Not through one company, through several, spread out, each purchase looking routine on its own. Thousands of cans, vacuum-sealed packages, seed banks, medical supplies, surgical equipment, antibiotics, pain medication, vitamins, hundreds of liters of stored fuel, backup generators and parts for backup generators, and parts for the parts. The system tracked his progress and upgraded his bunker's rating quietly one evening. While he was reviewing a supply spreadsheet, a small notification appeared: Sanctuary Level 3. He nodded at it like a person receiving a modest grade on an important exam, and went back to the spreadsheet. The third year was about making the bunker actually livable for a long time. He installed a geothermal heating loop that tapped into the Earth's own warmth. He built a hydroponic growing bay, a row of shelves and grow lights where vegetables could be produced underground without any sunlight, a water reclamation system, a medical bay with actual surgical capability, a communication array that could function even after surface infrastructure went down. And he selected people, not family, not friends. He did not have many of either to begin with, and sentiment was not the metric he used. He thought about what a group of people needed to survive long-term underground, and then worked backward from that. A surgeon, a botanist who had spent 20 years working with indoor growing systems, an electrical engineer, a retired military logistics officer, a child psychologist, because Jinhyo remembered from his first life that the psychological collapse inside survivor groups happened faster than the physical one. A few others with practical skills. He contacted each of them under the guise of a long-term research project. He gave them enough information to take it seriously without telling them everything. Most of them were skeptical at first. Most of them came around eventually, especially in the final months when the news started reporting strange things happening in Siberia. 6 months before the freeze, the anomaly appeared, an unusual cold spreading from the Russian north that scientists called unprecedented but manageable. Jinhyo watched news panels debated on television and felt nothing except the quiet certainty of someone who had already seen the third act. 3 months before, the anomaly grew. Temperatures in northern Europe and Canada dropped outside of any seasonal model. A small group of scientists started speaking loudly about something being wrong. They were mocked. Jinhyo increased his final supply purchases. 1 month before, food shortages appeared. Store shelves in several northern cities emptied faster than they could be restocked. Governments released statements asking people to remain calm. Jinhyo sent encrypted instructions to his 12 selected people, telling them where to go, what to bring, and exactly when to arrive. He told them to tell no one. Then came day 0. It was a Wednesday in February. Jinhyo was already underground when every major news channel went live at the same time with the same story. Temperatures in 17 countries had dropped below freezing overnight, with no explanation that existing climate science could account for. Crops across 3 continents flash froze in their fields within hours. Germany's power grid failed by evening. People began rushing to stores that were already empty, burning furniture for heat inside apartments, packing into cars and driving south toward warmth that would not last. Jinhyo sat in his underground command room, watching thermal satellite feeds on a monitor. His 12 selected people were all present and accounted for. The bunker was sealed. The geothermal heating hummed steadily through the walls. He did not allow himself to feel relief. He knew what was coming next. By day 3, people had found the facility. He did not know how. Maybe one of the construction workers talked. Maybe a supplier made a connection. Maybe someone spotted unusual activity on the land during the chaos and followed a hunch. It did not matter how. What mattered was that there were 14 people standing at the perimeter fence in the early morning gray, pressed against the chain link, breath coming out in clouds. Among them was a woman from his apartment building, an older lady who had left a bag of tangerines outside his door during a holiday once, the only neighbor who had ever done anything like that. She was holding a small boy's hand, her grandson probably. Among them was his former boss, the man who had denied him a promotion twice and once told a room full of colleagues that Jinhyo had the personality of a filing cabinet. Among them was a young journalist with a camera, live streaming the whole scene. He was calling Jinhyo a criminal and a hoarder to 60,000 people watching online, his voice shaking from the cold. By day 7, the crowd at the fence was 400 people. By day 12, it was over 2,000. Jinhyo watched the thermal feeds every morning. He did not go outside. He did not make announcements. He sat with the weight of what he was looking at and understood something the system had never told him directly, but which was becoming very clear. Surviving was not the hard part. The hard part was what survival cost. He had calculated supplies for 40 people over 15 years. That number was exact for a reason. Every additional body changed the equation, changed the timeline, changed what was possible on the other side of the freeze. But he was not entirely the same person who had died in that shopping mall. Something had shifted in the years he spent building this place. Not softness exactly, but a kind of awareness. He had spent 3 years thinking only about survival math. Now the math had a face. It had an old woman holding a child's hand in the snow. On day 15, he made a decision the system did not prompt him toward. He opened the surface annex, a secondary above-ground section of the facility that he had built as overflow storage. It was not the bunker. It was insulated, but not geothermally heated, kept warm by heavy-duty wood stoves and the body heat of people. It was stocked with 3 months of supplies, maybe 4 if managed carefully. He unlocked the gate. 231 people entered. Others had tried to rush in. His security systems had handled that. Others arrived too late. Others ran when the gate opened, thinking it was a trap. He watched all of this on the camera feeds and said nothing. Those who did not make it scattered into the white landscape outside. He watched until they were gone. Then he turned off that particular monitor. Some things you cannot keep looking at. Underground, a society formed the way societies always form. Slowly, then all at once. His surgeon performed 3 emergency operations in the first week alone, 2 frostbite amputations and 1 appendix. The botanist got the first hydroponic trays producing leafy greens by day 20, which caused a kind of quiet celebration in the corridor that Jinho watched from a distance, hands in his pockets. The electrical engineer figured out how to reroute geothermal output to also warm the surface annex, buying the people up there another 2 months of comfort they had not been guaranteed. The journalist from the live stream was one of the 231. On day 30, she found Jinho checking moisture levels in the hydroponic bay and sat down on a crate nearby without asking permission. They stayed like that for a minute before she spoke. She asked how long he had known. He told her 3 years. She asked why he had not warned anyone. He thought about how to answer that. Then he told her the truth, that in his previous life, warning people was the first thing everyone tried, and the second thing that happened was those people lost everything they had to the ones they warned. He had watched it happen over and over in the weeks before he died. She did not record any of it. She just nodded slowly, like someone filing something away for later. On day 72, the exact day he had died in his first life, Park Jinho was back in the hydroponic bay, checking on a tray of spinach, when the system issued a notification. The freeze had reached its peak temperature outside, -71 degrees. Bunker integrity was holding at 100%. Occupant survival rate across both the underground facility and the surface annex was just under 95%. He read it once, put his clipboard down, pressed one hand flat against the warm metal shelf of the grow rack, and felt the soft light of the grow bulbs on his skin. Somewhere down the corridor, someone was laughing. In the kitchen, his surgeon was showing a teenage boy how to measure blood pressure. The old woman's grandson was asleep on a cot with one small fist curled against his cheek. Park Jinho, the man nobody noticed, the man who died alone over a can of corn, stood in his underground garden in the middle of a frozen world, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, allowed himself to just breathe.